back, everybody, to the Hive. Thank you so much for joining us today in this epic show, this epic battle of who is the best speedway rider of these two riders. We're going to find out today. Who is exactly the better rider of the two? You had the Halifax's pride and joy, Kenny Carter, and then you had Balboa's very own, the poster boy, Bruce the Fox Penhall. I must say, if we're judging this competition by who is the most popular on my channel, who gets the most views, who gets the most interest, it would have to be Kenny Carter. Kenny Carter, on my first blog, he has almost 3,000 views. That's incredible. He's number one. So Kenny Carter definitely gets a lot of attention on the internet. I almost didn't make the Kenny Carter blog because my friends and people told me, don't do it, don't make a blog of Kenny Carter, don't popularize him. But I did, and I liked it, and I'm really happy I made that first blog of Kenny Carter. I am so happy that I made that first blog of Kenny. I saw just how popular Kenny Carter really is, and the legend of Kenny Carter will never die. Today we're going to go ahead and take a closer look at both Kenny and Bruce's racing life, the early days. And what's interesting, to do comparison, they entered the British League exactly the same year, in 1978. Kenny raced for the Newcastle Diamonds half the year, then he switched teams. He went to his home team, the Halifax Dukes. And then Bruce Penhall, he went to the Cradley Heath Heathens. Bruce Penhall was a heathen. Kenny Carter was an extremely young speedway rider when he entered the British League. He was only 17 years old, and he was a very gifted rider. Bruce entered the British League as an extremely hot young American rider, but he was a few years older than Kenny. He was 21. One thing they had in common is that they were both amazing young riders. They were both talented. Bruce Penhall and Kenny Carter were simply going to stay in the British League as top riders. He won the Skoal Masters, and he also won the British League Pairs Champion as a rookie in '78. But it was Bruce the Fox Penhall who jumped out ahead. He won individual and team honors the first year he raced for the Cradley Heath Heathens. Kenny Carter raced for the two teams his rookie year. He didn't have any major accomplishments, no individual or team championships, but he was a good rider. The following year in '79, Bruce Penhall won the laurels. He was the British League KO Cup champion, and he raced in the Best Pairs Championship with Kelly Moran. Following year in 1980, Kenny was a young rider. He was only 19 years old. He won the Dews Trophy and the Northern Trophy his second year in the British League. In that same year, 1980, Bruce the Fox Penhall, he appeared in his first World Championship in Sweden, and he finished 5th place. Kenny finished his first full season without switching teams in the British League, and he won the British Junior Championship in that first full season. After the first 3 seasons, Bruce Penhall dominated Kenny Carter in accomplishments, but Bruce Penhall was a few years older than Kenny Carter. However, in 1981, that was a huge year for Bruce Penhall. 1981 was the year of Bruce Penhall. That same year, Bruce flew home and won his first United States Speedway Championship at the Costa Mesa Bullring. In 1980, another accomplishment that Bruce had was the Midlands Cup champion. Bruce Penhall was a Midlands Cup champion. He was the British League champion. He won 4 individual championship honors awards, and the crowning event of 1981 was his World Championship. In 1981 at the Wembley Stadium, the last event they had at Wembley in front of 92,500 screaming fans, Bruce Penhall won his first World Championship. In 81, he was back-to-back United States Speedway champion in the United States, and he was the best pairs champion with the Boogaloo, Bobby Schwartz. I must admit, Carter had a pretty good 1981. It wasn't bad at all. He was a good rider. But 1981 was the year of Bruce Penhall. He won it all. Bruce Penhall was the dominant rider in 1981. 1981 was a year of total domination for the young Mr. Penhall. He had a year to remember. No one will forget Bruce Penhall's 1981. However, in 1981, Kenny Carter was no slouch. He won 5 individual titles, honors, championships, and he was in his first World Championship. He placed 5th place in that particular event, and he was 2nd place in the World Team Cup. Kenny Carter also had a pretty good 1981. 1982, Kenny Carter won 3 individual honors and championships, and he placed 2nd in the Best Pairs Championship. Not bad. He had a good 1982. And then he raced in that controversial night at the LA Coliseum. We all remember that one, don't you? And he placed 5th place in that particular event. And Bruce topped off that 82 season by winning the World Championship. Bruce Penhall won that championship with 14 points in the LA Coliseum. From 83 to 86, Kenny's last few years of racing Speedway, he won 4 individual titles and honors, and he was the 1st place in the Best Pairs Championship with Peter Collins. And he was in a World Championship again, placing, I believe it was 5th place. Kenny Carter was an amazing rider. I think Bruce Penhall will go down as the only Speedway rider ever to win a World Championship and retire on the spot, never to race competitively again. That's just an incredible feat. Also, he was in that TV show Chips, and they filmed a TV show at that event at the LA Coliseum, and they wrote him in that he would win the World Championship. And guess what? Bruce Penhall won that World Championship. And Bruce won a total of 8 team championships. However, Bruce Penhall outfoxed Kenny Carter again. He won 2 individual honors championships that year, and he won the World Team Cup Championship for Team USA in dedicated memory to the fallen Denny Pyatt. Looking back, Bruce Penhall won 10 individual honors, championships, and events, including the back-to-back World Championship in 1981 and 82. Kenny, on the other hand, he won 15 individual honors and championships. He had beaten Bruce Penhall by 5 individual championships. But honestly, if tragedy didn't strike the life of Kenny Carter at the age of 25, he was in his prime. I mean, Kenny Carter was primed to win a world championship or 2 after that time, and it didn't happen. And we will never know exactly if Kenny Carter would have won those championships. But I believe if that particular event did not happen, Kenny Carter probably would have surpassed Bruce Penhall. If you take all the individual and team honors and then you take both riders, Bruce Penhall won all these honors by only 1 event. So that tells you that Kenny Carter was a very good rider. Moving over to the team championships, Kenny Carter only had 2 team championships, and Bruce Penhall beat Kenny Carter in that area in the team racing by 6 events. Bruce Penhall and Kenny Carter were in 3 world champion events. Bruce Penhall in his first attempt was 5th place, and then he won 1st place and 1st place in the next 2 events. And then Kenny Carter was in also 3 world championship events, and he finished 5th place in all 3 events. Bruce Penhall and Kenny Carter, 2 gifted and unbelievable athletes. They were really good. And one thing that you might want to know is that Kenny Carter was a lot closer to Bruce Penhall than some of you may know. However, the truth is that Kenny Carter did not fulfill his destiny. And the truth is that Bruce Penhall was the better rider.